This brings us to the S&D 50, Week 7. We will go through teams 46 through 50. At number 50, up 2 spots in the rankings, we have James Madison. At 49, down 19 spots in the rankings, we have Houston. At number 48, up 22 spots, Northwestern. At 47, up 26 spots, the Florida Gators. And at number 46, up 10 spots, the South Florida Bulls. For those not watching on YouTube, teams that are new to the S&D 50 this week, welcome James Madison. Teams that were in the S&D 50 at some point this season and have now returned starting this week, we have Northwestern, welcome, Florida, and South Florida. Welcome to both of those teams.
You know, I remember when that South Florida game happened at the beginning of the season that, right on the heels of South Florida beating Boise State, kind of came out of nowhere. They started pretty low in our ratings. And the week after they played, Florida was still 1 spot ahead of South Florida in the rankings when you shook it all out because Florida started so far ahead of them. Now, South Florida 1 spot ahead of Florida. A little bit of an interesting thing there. And they actually played far enough in the past that I'm pretty sure either this week or next week, our model really tapers off any kind of credit that either team will get for the other's performance. Because it's mid-October, well, right now it's early October, but, give it a week, it's going to be mid-October. The teams that met in early September are very different from the teams that are playing in mid-October, very different from the teams that end the year. So, we could see Florida have a meteoric rise in the SEC and they'll pass South Florida because they have more opportunities to prove themselves against better foes.
South Florida's up 120 rating points. Florida up 255 rating points for beating Texas.
Should we be talking about Northwestern beating Penn State this week?
I mean, I wasn't planning on it, but when you say it like that, it actually sounds pretty logical.
Vegas right now has Penn State. Now Penn State is playing at home, but they have them as 22.5-point favorites.
That's so wrong.
And Northwestern is at number 48. Penn State is at number 65.
Just saying that it doesn't sound right. I don't know if it even feels right, but the S&D thinks that Northwestern's got a real shot to beat them.
And I'll tell you what, if Penn State beats Northwestern, and if they beat them really bad, they'll bounce right back into this. They may even have a pretty big jump up. But I don't know. Penn State looked really, really bad against UCLA. And maybe that's my own bias because I just expected UCLA to be bad. But Northwestern hasn't looked phenomenal all year. I mean, Penn State's probably going to get undue credit for beating Northwestern if they win. And the storyline's going to be about Penn State no matter what. But Northwestern, meanwhile, is stringing together some good games and some good wins. ULM for one this past week.
And to give a small shout out to a team we'll talk about in the future, I'll put this here just as a little nugget. Tulane beat Northwestern. Just putting that out there. Houston's a good team. I get that they fell 19 spots in the rankings, but they, even with that bad of a loss to Texas Tech, they're still here in the 50. Just shows what kind of team they are. Teams 41 through 45, up at 45, up 1 spot, the Baylor Bears. At number 44, up 1 spot, the Auburn Tigers. At number 43, up 6 spots, the Old Dominion Monarchs. At 42, down 16 spots in the rankings, Maryland. And at number 41, holding their same spot from last week, the Arizona Wildcats.
Sawyer Robertson is leading the country in both passing yards and passing touchdowns. That dude is putting together a special season there in Waco.
Is that not the most Baylor thing you've ever heard, though? Like,
absolutely.
I guess you could have said that about any of those column North Texas / Oklahoma schools. Like that's the arid out region of the country.
Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Baylor. If you tell me that they're historically putting up offensive numbers that make your jaw drop, I'll believe you. That's a great stat. Great stat. Auburn up a spot on a bye. Does anyone want to explain why a team moves up when they're on a bye?
I got you, Andrew. It's because Auburn has played people. And our model doesn't just give you credit for what you do each week. It definitely does that, but it also gives you credit for who you beat in past weeks and how they do. So if you beat a team that goes out and gets a win, you get a little bit of a bump, especially if they go out and win big, and especially if they win fast after you beat them. If you lose to a team that loses, then you get knocked down further because you lost to a team that lost. Similarly, if you beat, for example, UCLA the week before they beat Penn State, you get a little boost because the team that you beat a really good team. So how did that shake out for Auburn? Well, let me tell you, Auburn's last 2 games, Oklahoma and Texas A&M, they lost to both of those teams. Now, they lost by a combined 13 points. Both of those were one-score games. Both of those were on the road. And both of those teams are out here winning SEC games. And so Auburn is getting credit for playing these teams close.
Jacob, Old Dominion up 6 spots in the rankings, up 70 rating points for putting on a clinic against Coastal Carolina 47-7. How are you feeling about the Monarchs?
I think they're very good. They're very dangerous. They are asserting themselves as the top team in the Sun Belt. We saw James Madison at 50 as the next team and the next challenger, which we do get that game in just a couple weeks. That is going to be the Sun Belt clash, Old Dominion versus James Madison. But this is why I love the S&D 50. It can cue you into teams like Old Dominion that are to be noticed, are to be on watch. And this is a team that I think could run the table potentially and make some noise for that G5 college football playoff spot.
Maryland at 42. The score is deceiving here. They lost to Washington 24-20. We did a little ditty on Maryland earlier last week. Maryland had a lead in this game for a lot of this game. They're ahead and they blow it. And obviously they're punished for it. But man, Maryland, someday, maybe they'll string it together. I want them to, but not this week.
I mean, saying that Maryland had a lead in this game might be like the understatement of the century. Maryland scored all 20 of its points before Washington scored any of its 24.
Precisely.
Like, that was Maryland with 4 minutes left in the third quarter. Maryland was still leading 20-0. So Washington was able to string together a field goal and 3 straight touchdowns. All offensive too. Like, they weren't running back pick sixes and saving time that way. They were getting the ball back and stringing together drives of 74 yards, 75 yards, and 80 yards in the fourth quarter to win that ball game. So I honestly think it might say a little more about Washington than Maryland, but yeah, Maryland's struggling right now.
Arizona at 41. I get that they clobbered the Gundy-less Cowboys of Oklahoma State, but they have a big one this week against BYU. We'll get to BYU, but Arizona's a team that the more I watch them, the more I think, how good are you? Teams 36 through 40. At number 40, up 4 spots. Fresno State. At 39, holding the same spot as last week, Utah. At number 38, down 16 spots, Spencer's Louisville Cardinals. At number 37, down a spot, the darling of darlings, Louisiana Tech. And number 36, up 12 spots, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Fresno State, quite the squeaker against Nevada, huh?
You know, I like Fresno. I do. But they do not blow other teams out. Nevada, they barely beat Hawaii last week. They barely beat Nevada this week. You know, they got the dub.
Nevada's number 132 this week in the S&P 50.
They're bad. And they were up 20-3 and let Nevada come back in it. EJ Warner, he's had an interesting career. He started off at Temple, then he went to Rice, and here he is at Fresno for his final year. He's got over 30 starts under his belt before coming to Fresno. So the man has experience, but when you look at his career stats, he's had some games where he's completely balled out, and he's had some games where he's thrown a lot of interceptions. And he's had kind of both of those at Fresno, a mixed bag here. as well, as EJ, Kurt Warner's son, tries to put a special season together. But Fresno is right where they want to be in the Mountain West. They're in contention. Here they are at number 40, still getting the wins and squeaking by.
Utah 39 this week. They finally, it's not big noon. No. This is Rice Eccles at 10 Eastern. Utah, Arizona State. Huge game. Utah was on a bye. I'm excited to see what that venue looks like and what that game looks like.
That's big implications for the Big 12 race. I mean, neither of these teams, had these two teams' seasons played out a little bit differently so far. This could have easily been like the preview, and may still be the preview for the Big 12 title game. Like Utah and Arizona State were essentially favorites. Mix in Iowa State, Texas Tech really surging, but Utah and Arizona State were really top tier favorites to win the Big 12. They both still can, obviously, because the Big 12, as America's conference, is famous for tearing each other apart all season long. But this game, probably a little bit disappointed if you're fans of either of these teams that this game isn't like the game of the season.
Don't get it twisted. That game will be rocking when it kicks off. Louisville at 38, Spencer. Georgia Tech's our darling at the ACC. Louisville is yours. What say ye of this Virginia loss, 30-27 in overtime?
Well, I gotta say, I still stand by my Louisville Cardinals. I do think that Virginia is really good. I think that their win against Florida State has more meaning. I think that Louisville's win against Pitt has more meaning this week too. But I have faith in my Cardinals. I love them.
Louisiana Tech on a bye this week. They have Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State, sneaky. They're good.
Yeah, they won't be good enough for Louisiana Tech, though.
Correct. I know, but it is something. It's something for Louisiana Tech to continue to build upon.
Louisiana Tech is another one of those G5 teams, kind of like Old Dominion, that if you did not know about the S&D 50, you would not realize how good they really are. One of the best defensive backfields, if not the best defensive backfield in the country there at Louisiana Tech, shutting teams down. They are going to boat race the Conference USA, in my opinion, and it's going to be fun to see how high they climb.
Nebraska. They beat Michigan State. Now they get Maryland. It's a battle between both teams to right the season. And if Nebraska can string a couple of these together, the Dylan Raiola chatter may simmer down a bit.
I've liked Nebraska from the beginning of the year. I think Matt Rule is a great head coach. And it's just a matter of time till Nebraska gets rolling. And I really thought it would be this year. And I think it still could be. I think they can still make a lot of noise in the Big Ten. All is not lost with that Michigan loss. They can ride the ship, make this right, and get themselves humming.
And they were in that Michigan game.
They are so close to being undefeated right now. So close.
Correct. Teams 31 through 35. At number 35, up 8 spots, the Duke Blue Devils. At number 34, down 3 spots, South Carolina. At number 33, down 10 spots, Mississippi State. At number 32, up 5 spots, Washington. And at number 31, up 2 spots, the North Texas Mean Green.
Duke is looking, after a slow start with a couple of losses, they are looking like the dark horse in the ACC right now. Darian Mensah, the transfer from Tulane, is second in the country in passing yards and fourth in touchdowns. Their offense is humming. They dispatched the My Cal Golden Bears in the second half like they were children. And Duke is looking to rock this conference right now.
Duke put us all to bed Saturday night. I went to bed as soon as I saw them go up a couple of scores, and that was it. Thank you. South Carolina on a bye. This week they have LSU at night. Should be a big one.
Yeah. I think that South Carolina has been a little bit forgotten from the SEC. And they had that game against Missouri that was pretty close. They got romped by Vanderbilt. And then they beat Kentucky, right? We talked about that last week. That was kind of their get right game, but I still think they're being overlooked. Our model has them down just a little bit this week. That again is one of those residual moments where a team that they have played in the past adjusted their score down. In this case, Kentucky. But South Carolina had really high expectations. I almost think too high of expectations coming into the season. It might have been a little overwhelming for their team, for LaNorris Sellers. They still can string together some SEC wins, and they are not a team I would want to have on my schedule if I am an SEC powerhouse that is actively seeking not just an SEC title, but a national championship. I'm thinking about playoff placement. I'm thinking about making sure I get into the playoffs, that I have a strong resume, that I'm not there with a third loss where other people are going to have two. I'm looking at you, LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M. Like, those are essentially the 5 best teams in the SEC. They all have to play South Carolina left. So this is not an easy opponent for anyone on this list.
Another SEC team that's walked the gauntlet. They get the bye this week. The Mississippi State Bulldogs. They're on a bye this week. Upcoming, they have Florida. So they just went to College Station. They had Tennessee the week prior. Now bye week, and they go to Gainesville and get the Gators. Washington at 32. We talked about them. Big win against Maryland. This week, they have Rutgers.
I kind of group these teams all together. Washington, Maryland, Rutgers, Iowa. This is like the core, the middle section of the Big Ten. I mean, dare I say, did Penn State fall into their ranks this past week? They're a lot lower in the model, but they could bounce back. But this is like, I guess, kind of similar to Mississippi State, South Carolina. These are not your flag bearers for the conference, but these teams are not to be dismissed when you have them on your schedule.
North Texas at 31, up 2 spots. They were on a bye. This week, they have South Florida. Jacob said it in the group chat earlier. The American is stacked, stacked, stacked. North Texas, South Florida should be a good one.
If you pay attention to the S&D, you would know about North Texas, but I think the rest of the country is about to get introduced to North Texas here as they host South Florida, a ranked AP team. Have you guys heard about this starting quarterback from North Texas and what his story is?
Mestamaker?
Yeah, Mestamaker. He hasn't even started outside of this season and last year's bowl game. He hadn't started a football game since the 9th grade. The guy sat behind a 3-star QB in high school who is now playing for Spencer, yours truly, Louisville, is not starting for them. But he sat behind him in high school, didn't even get a start, walked on to North Texas, became the 2nd stringer last year, and then this year gets the starting job. And if anything, I think this goes to prove how Eric Morris, the head coach at North Texas, might be the most underrated QB whisperer out there. We've already talked about what he did with Cam Ward. There's another QB that is piloting a team ahead of North Texas right now that he also mentored and helped revive his career. Chandler Morris at Virginia. And then
pretty good.
Yeah. And this was something that was just brought to my attention. He was the original coach who started recruiting everybody's favorite QB at Oklahoma, John Mateer.
John Mateer this year. Did you know he was involved in Baker Mayfield's rise too?
Yes, when he was OC at Texas Tech, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought you were going to go deep cut with that, but yeah, he's got roots all the way there.
Yeah, this man is the QB whisperer, and here he is taking a guy who hasn't even started since his freshman year of high school, making him into a very well-refined QB at North Texas that's leading this team to American contention.
And just so you know, South Florida is 24th in the AP poll, like Jacob mentioned. North Texas unranked. That is a crime in the S&D 50 because we have North Texas at 31, South Florida at number 46. If you're watching this weekend and North Texas is in the lead or wins that game, we weren't surprised, and we won't even mention it as a game to watch. Teams 26 through 30. At number 30, up 17 spots, the Kansas Jayhawks. At 29, up 9 spots, UNLV. At 28, down 1 spot, USC. At number 27, up 8 spots, Virginia. At number 26, down 5 spots, Navy.
How do you gotta feel this week if you're a Rebel and you watch the team you beat, UCLA, take down Penn State?
Gotta feel mighty good.
I mean, like, our model rewards you for past opponents, but just the vibes you gotta have as a fan to be like, we beat UCLA. UCLA beat Penn State. So, like, we beat Penn State.
Transitive property, love it.
But who the model loves this week is Kansas. They gave them 205 points for the win over UCF. And Kansas, those Jayhawks just refused to go away from the S&D 50.
Well, and you know who also got them a ton of points? Cincinnati, also not mentioned here. So they get a boost not only for beating UCF, but they played Cincinnati so competitively. And Cincinnati beat Iowa State, and it wasn't as competitive.
Yeah, that split, by the way, a little peek behind the curtain here for how we shake this out. So Kansas went up 205 points. They actually only went up 70 points for that win against Central Florida. They got a combined from all of their opponents that they've played so far this year. So that includes, that's Cincinnati,
Missouri.
West Virginia, Missouri. For their performances this week, they got a net benefit to their rating of 135 points. So most of that is going to be your Cincinnati team, who they were super competitive with. As Andrew said, they only lost by 3. Cincinnati turning around and beating Iowa State, a team that we had in the top 5.
Jacob's right. Kansas will remain in the S&D 50 this year because they are feisty. USC this week. USC, they have Michigan, and I think this is shaping up to be a pretty big game in the Big Ten. Virginia at 27. That huge win against Louisville puts them at 27 in our poll, 19 in the AP poll. Virginia on the ascent. And Navy with a nail-biter against Air Force. That's a rivalry game. The model does not see it as a rivalry game because we don't put rivalries in there. But Navy gets the win. They are down 5 spots, but again, everything in front of them in the American.
Going back to Virginia, I just had one more thing to say about them. I was looking at their future schedule. They only have one team left on their schedule who is ranked in this current version of the S&D 50, and that is Duke. Like we said, Duke's a good team, very dangerous. They could beat them, but that is a very favorable schedule for Virginia, and we're finally seeing their head coach, Tony Elliott, the former OC of Clemson, here in his 4th year, start to put together a really solid year and do what we thought he was going to do when he initially took over. It just took a little time, and it's all paying off.
And you want to talk about an ACC dark horse? We talked about Duke. Virginia's your team because here they go. Washington State, North Carolina, Cal, Wake Forest, Duke, Virginia Tech. I mean, on that schedule, it's Wake Forest and Duke.
I would even say Wake
wins,
Forest.
or 2 toughest teams to beat.
I would even say Wake Forest might be a trickier game for them than Duke. Yeah. It's the kind of the looking ahead thing, and just, considering that schedule, everyone's circling Duke. You should be circling Wake Forest as well.
Yep, they host Wake Forest November 8th. They go to Duke November 15th.
How did they lose to NC State?
Why is NC State not as good as we thought they would be?
As a man, I love cooking. Sometimes the sauce just needs a little cornstarch. You got to heat it up. And once that sauce thickens, it goes from watered down, not that great, to perfect. Virginia feels like a well-made sauce at this point.
I was wondering where that analogy was going to go.
I got you. Teams 21 through 25. At number 25, down 18 spots, Vanderbilt. At number 24, up 11 spots, TCU. At 23, up 11 spots. There you go, Georgia fans. You have Georgia. At 22, down 17 spots. Iowa State, aforementioned. And number 21, down a spot, Tulane. Let's start with the Commodores of Vanderbilt.
Okay, the Commodores of Vanderbilt. I said the other day, maybe a week or two ago, that I don't want their schedule. I take that back.
Really? I don't
take
want their
that
schedule.
back.
Remaining schedule: LSU, Missouri, Texas, Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee.
Okay, yes. For an SEC schedule, this is all I'm saying. For an SEC schedule, that is not as bad as a lot of other teams. LSU, I think they're beatable. Missouri, they still haven't left home. We don't know what they are.
That's their first time leaving home.
Oh my
October
gosh.
25th.
That's crazy.
Going to Nashville.
Texas, we're seeing them fall on their face. Auburn, middle of the road SEC team. Kentucky, lower tier SEC team. Tennessee, I'll take Vandy.
You know, that's a hot take. And they are on a bye this week.
Too.
They're on a bye this week. They have a chance to get right. You're right, Jacob. Everything's in front of them still. And here's what I'll say about Diego Pavia. Had he not turned it over, I talked about this earlier, it's a different game against Alabama. I don't like it when quarterbacks talk smack before the game. It just doesn't bode well when you give people bulletin board material, but that's just me. I think that Vanderbilt, again, a lot to play for.
Beat LSU and everything is in front of them.
Yeah, absolutely. TCU, they beat Colorado 35-21. This week they have those pesky Kansas State Wildcats.
You know, Colorado was pesky for them to put away. For anyone who watched this game, it was actually really close, closer than that score suggests. I am sick and tired of people telling me that Colorado is trash. They're 2-4. I get it. They're not a top 50 team per se right now, but they're a tough team, and TCU had to put together a full game from the kickoff to the zeros on the clock at quarter 4 in order to get that win. And so good win for them. We'll see what they do moving forward in the pesky Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, we only really talk about the game competitive scores for our games to watch, but this game had, I believe, the highest competitive score of any game this week. I'm spot checking myself right here before I declare that. Yeah, no, there's one other. I'll give that a little call out too. The only games that have a higher competitive score this week than Colorado TCU was Eastern Michigan and Buffalo. They had a competitive of 97.8. Colorado TCU had a competitive rating of 95.6. So this was, according to the model, the second most competitive game of the week.
And this is why the model rocks. Jacob said it. You see the final score and you think, oh, Deion lost again. But no, if you watch the game, it was competitive, and the model rewards that. Georgia fans, you're up 11 spots. There you go. We get a lot of mentions in the comments about our Georgia ranking being too low. Again, you're in the SEC. You're in the SEC. Everything's in front of you. This is an unbiased model. It doesn't know who Georgia is or the historical significance of Georgia. They're up 11 spots. They go to Auburn at night. They have a chance to keep climbing. Georgia crushes Kentucky 35-14.
Georgia fans, we're sorry. The S&D does not reward your win against Austin Peay like the AP poll does.
Despite the fact that we probably give you more credit for it, weirdly enough, because we know that Austin Peay isn't a terrible team.
Absolutely. And on the inverse, Iowa State. Iowa State is a team, we had them in the top 5. Spencer said that last week. Iowa State's had some devastating injuries. They went to Cincinnati. They had further injuries in that game. They lose 38-30. They're down 17 spots. It's a bummer that we don't get to see them whole, but I do feel that 22, fair spot for them this week.
I agree.
You know, the AP poll and the College Football Playoff Committee and the coaches poll, they will oftentimes rank teams lower, anticipating that they'll be without players. The
It's
S&D
insane.
doesn't do that. But when that team loses because of those injuries, the S&D rightfully corrects as we see them drop to 22.
And the AP poll, funny enough, has Iowa State at 22. So, moment of silence for the AP poll and us matching on a team. This week they have Colorado. Speaking of Colorado.
They're not as bad as the national media says.
And Tulane this week has East Carolina. East Carolina just missed the 50 this week. They are a tough team. Big game for Tulane.
Crazy how tough the American is, as this, like you said, East Carolina's right there.
This is a Tulane team that now has 2 wins against Power 4 foes, now in the 50, Northwestern and Duke. Like, they lost at Ole Miss, got completely boat raced. But we see Ole Miss, those who follow the podcast already know this.
Very highly.
They're highly rated. They've been number 1 in the past. Will they be this week? We'll find out. But they're a top team in the SEC. They're a top team in the country. It was a home game for Ole Miss. Tulane did not show up, but they have showed beyond that. They have showed up everywhere else they've played. They have played opponents tough. They've held on to leads late. They've run people out of the building. They've put it together lots of different ways. They've got a quarterback who has big-time experience in Jake Retzloff. I like Tulane. They're not even our highest-rated American team, fun fact, but I do like them in the American.
Speaking of that, teams 16 through 20. At number 20, up 8 spots, Notre Dame. At number 19, down 4 spots, Tennessee. At number 18, up 7 spots, Memphis. There's that American team we said. At number 17, up 23 spots, Cincinnati. I repeat, at number 17, Cincinnati. And number 16, holding their same spot from last week, Arizona State. Notre Dame with a huge win against Boise State. Notre Dame took a tumble. Here they are back at 20 in the S&D 50, getting rewarded for good wins. Tennessee on a bye. They dropped 4 spots, but this week they have Arkansas. Should be another time to get dialed in for the rest of their schedule.
I feel bad saying that. Arkansas was a team that I thought could be bowl eligible this year. And we'll see if the departure of Sam Pittman has changed anything for the Razorbacks. But I think this is probably Tennessee's game to lose.
And here, our highest rated American team, Memphis. They blow out Tulsa 45-7. Memphis looking great.
They are looking great, undefeated. But as I look at their schedule in the American, they have one of the tougher schedules. They have South Florida, Tulane, Navy, and East Carolina still coming up. All S&D 50 ranked teams. The only American team that I'd say a top team that they're avoiding is North Texas.
And if Memphis does well in those games, they will really jump up in these ratings. So 18 is just the beginning. Cincinnati at 17. Holy cannoli. Cincinnati has had a meteoric rise in the S&D 50. It's so exciting to see them here. Cincinnati is not ranked in the AP poll, people. But Cincinnati...
They're just outside.
Cincinnati getting the credit they deserve right here. They beat Iowa State 38-30.
Yeah, their only loss this year is the opener against Nebraska, a 3-point loss for them.
Which came down to the end. That was a game to the very end with a chance to win.
Which is the most Big 12 thing ever. Nebraska's not even a Big 12 team anymore. It hasn't been for a long time. But Cincinnati is looking like they could finish October 7-1. Their next 3 games are against UCF, who's struggling right now, Oklahoma State, who is the epitome of program collapse, and then Baylor. And Baylor's going to be a tough test, but it gets a lot harder after that because they end with games against Utah, Arizona, BYU, and TCU. But Cincinnati could be really, really good for the whole season. They're going to be ranked in the AP if they win this week. They're already in the top 20 in the S&D. It seems like they're out of nowhere, but they've quietly been putting together a really good season. So it's the S&D's job to call that out early.
Scott Satterfield has the Bearcats cooking. Teams 11 through 15. At 15, down a spot, BYU. At 14, down 1 spot, LSU. At 13, down 4 spots, the Oregon Ducks. At 12, up 6 spots, Illinois. And at 11, up 6 spots, Michigan.
BYU dropping a spot, getting passed by teams above them. LSU's in the same boat. They both went up by about the same amount. LSU actually had a bye and got credit from opponents they put in the past. BYU, meanwhile, beat West Virginia. It wasn't a competitive game. It came in under 70 on our competitive ratings, but I don't know that they're looking like they could win the Big 12 at this point. It was a nightcap game, so I got to catch parts of that, and I don't know that they've got it. I think Arizona State looks better than they do right now. Texas Tech, who we haven't even gotten to, looks better than they do right now. They might be our most overrated Big 12 team.
They're beneficiaries of a great schedule, and it shows. Because that West Virginia game, you're right, Spencer, the score is deceiving. It felt a little too close for a team in West Virginia who is a bottom feeder in the Big 12 right now.
Last thing on BYU, I would argue a bigger loss came at the cost of the win. I would say their most important player, Jack Kelly, went down, starting linebacker for them. He is the heart and soul of that defense. That defense carries them. It carried them last year. It's been carrying them this year. If he misses substantial time, I don't know if BYU can continue this unbeaten streak.
They have Arizona this week, so it will be a tough game. LSU has South Carolina, night game. Should be a good one. LSU has a lot to prove still. They've done great so far, but it's the SEC. Week in and week out, you got to prove it. Oregon at 13. Big, big, big game. They have Indiana. We will get to that game when we bring up Indiana, but Oregon on a bye, getting ready for a big game.
Now, here's something I want to talk about with Oregon real quick as it relates to the poll. Oregon at 13, if you've been paying attention, you see that Oregon dropped 4 spots on a bye week. And it's because they're number 3 in the AP poll. I really hate the whole AP poll mentality of like, well, if they didn't play, why move them, right? Because it's not just what you do each week, it's what you did the week before. Like Oregon went to Penn State and won in double overtime, only to have that win lose value when Penn State got, when UCLA scored 42 points on Penn State. Oregon, offensive juggernaut Oregon, was only able to score, they weren't even able to score that much in double overtime against Penn State. And yeah, it was a road game, and it was wide out, and Penn State's game was a road game, but like UCLA really affected the ratings this week with that win. They knocked Oregon down 38 rating points in 4 spots because of how badly they beat Penn State and really ruined Penn State's schedule.
Illinois beats Purdue 43-27. This week, they host Ohio State. Illinois in the AP poll is 17th. We have them at 12. Now that we saw Texas lose to Florida, this is the best team Ohio State has played so far. We will get to them when we get to Ohio State, but just saying this here, Illinois is a good team. I love seeing them get fully rewarded at 12.
Andrew, I'm shaking my head right now. I'm just shaking it back and forth because I love it. I'm shaking my head because I love seeing Illinois at number 12. And we saw them as preseason favorites here in the S&D, and they suffered that big loss to Indiana. But now look at them, just a couple weeks later, clawing their way back, knocking on the door, saying, "Here, hey, top 10, I'm here, I'm ready. Let me in. I ain't going anywhere."
Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. Michigan at 11. Beat Wisconsin. This week, USC, Michigan. With the win against Nebraska, looking better. Now they have USC. Teams 6 through 10. At 10, cracking 10, the top 10 for the first time, up 2 spots, Georgia Tech. At 9, up 10 spots, Texas Tech. At 8, down 2 spots, Missouri. At 7, up 1 spot, Oklahoma. And at 6, up 5 spots, Alabama. Georgia Tech on a bye. This week they have Virginia Tech. Again, they'll probably just continue to handle business, correct?
I mean, I don't see Virginia Tech having the steam in them to do anything against Haynes King and that Georgia Tech.
Texas Tech has Kansas.
Ooh, that's hard.
Kansas, we have Kansas at 30. It's a shiesty team you don't want to play. Texas Tech continues to walk the gauntlet. That is the front half of their schedule. We talked about how they have a favorable end of the schedule, but big win. They beat Kansas. They're well on their way.
Yeah, after Kansas, they've only got two really quality opponents. That's Arizona State. That's a road game in October, and then a home game against BYU in November. But, I think Kansas could be a trip game for them. But so far, I've just been really impressed with Texas Tech and the fact that they can do it with multiple quarterbacks when needed. I think Texas Tech is the undisputed Big 12 favorite at this point. They're our highest rated Big 12 team. And I think that I would be surprised at this point if they don't at least make the Big 12 title game.
We had a Texas Tech fan reach out to us in one of our videos, comment and talk about he took it as a slight that I said something about the millions of dollars that they're spending in NIL, and he's like, well, look, Ohio State does it and Michigan does it and no one bats an eye. And I'm like, hey, I'm not meaning that as a slight. Like, Texas Tech, I love what NIL has actually done to the college football world, and Texas Tech is example number one. Texas Tech, typically a middling Big 12 team, maybe gets in the 20s. Best hopes are 8-4, 9-3, and now we have a Texas Tech team that's looking like they're going to contend for a national championship, potentially top 10 team, Texas Tech. NIL, I love you because you bring us gifts like Texas Tech and put it on our doorstep and say, here, have it. Watch a new team make some noise.
And another team who follows right up against that is Missouri. Missouri gets Alabama. We will preview this in our games to watch to just give a little tidbit there. But the AP poll has Alabama at 8. We have them at 6. Missouri in the AP poll is 14. We have them at 8. Must watch television this week. We will get to it. But again, we give teams credit when they win. Alabama was low all year. Here they are at 6. They get their credit. They beat Vanderbilt. And Oklahoma looks like they should just steamroll Texas. They had a bye against Kent State. I know Kent State is a team, but they won 44-0. We said that last week. Oklahoma should keep rolling.
A bye against Kent State. I'm curious to see what, if anything, about the John Mateer injury, what that does to Oklahoma's performance for the rest of the year. Our model won't reflect that until it comes to pass, but we like Oklahoma as a top 10 team right now.
Teams 1 through 5, here they are. Spicy, spicy, spicy. At number 5, up 5 spots, Miami. At number 4, down 2 spots, Indiana. At number 3, down 2 spots, Ole Miss. At number 2, up 2 spots, Ohio State. And at number 1, up 2 spots, their first time being number 1, Texas A&M.
I love the model. I love that it doesn't care if where you were the week before. If you're on a bye, look at this. Ole Miss and Indiana both have bye weeks. They didn't play, and so they slipped. And it's almost like we're saying, hey, now that, Texas A&M and Ohio State have both had byes to this point, now all of these teams are 5-0. Now that they've all played 5 games, where are they at? Not just where were they before this Saturday, but where are they at through 5 completed games? I love this.
And it goes to show, like, people say this all the time, even voters of the AP poll and national media, big names say it. They say, there's a lot of parity at the top in college football. There really isn't that 1 or 2 dominant teams. Well, if there's not, why not show it in the polls and the rankings? The S&D shows that by the jumble, letting it look at this happen in the top 5. It's still pretty much the same top 5-ish teams outside of Indiana, top 4 there, but they jumbled up a little bit because there is parity. They are pretty level right now. There isn't one that's really put itself above the other.
And for our listeners, number 1 Texas A&M has an S&D rating of 5877. At number 5, Miami has an S&D rating of 5766. So a little more than 100 points separates 1 through 5. It is razor thin 1 through 5.
Just take a look at 1 through 4. It's 40 points. Texas A&M at 5877, Ohio State at 5870, Ole Miss at 5865, and Indiana at 5837. That's 40 points between the top 4 teams. This is the exact kind of thing. If they all go out and play and win this coming week, they will all go up. But how they win will determine how much they go up. How their opponents perform will determine if they get any positive or negative adjustments. Do those wins look better or worse? And all 4 of these teams play this week, by the way. Texas A&M plays Florida. Ohio State plays Illinois. Ole Miss plays Washington State. Indiana plays Oregon. We'll talk about the specific games. If you have teams performing better, they're going to get more rating points. If worse, they're going to get less. If they're playing better opponents, they'll get more for that. If they're playing worse opponents, they'll get less. I love that it'll shake out based on how it happens on the field and the quality of the play.
And when you shake it out on quality of play and what they do on the field, yes, if you watch Texas A&M, you do question if they can score when they need to score, but that doesn't matter. They've performed to this point and beat teams that put them in this position to be number 1. Again, this poll is not predictive. It's not saying Texas A&M will stay number 1 forever, but up to this point through week 6, they've played like number 1 and played better teams than Ohio State at number 2. And I love that rewarding because that's what it should be.